All right, I'm just going to freestyle for like 3 minutes.
Okay. Living with leopards. Da, da, da. Okay, that's it.
That's actually my hit song.
You have to subscribe for the rest.
Yeah.
Don't. Sorry, one sec.
Don't what, babe?
Don't. Just don't.
Stop it.
There we go.
I can't even see the television.
Oh, man.
So, no, I'm not sitting beside you while we do this. We have to look at each other.
Yeah.
Which I hate.
Why?
Which I despise about
we
the process.
don't have to look anywhere. We could close our eyes and do this. Radio styles. That's how people record on the radio, right?
How?
Not look at
back
each
to
other.
back, actually. Yeah. Yeah, most of the time.
Authentic experience.
All right, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Don't yell too much.
Okay.
Now that we know how sound works,
Jeez.
welcome to the Low Ceiling. Today we're covering the film Melancholia 2.
What the fuck?
Hypercolia.
Oh, Jesus.
Funincolia?
Never.
Don't look up.
None-and-colia, all right? Don't look up.
Don't look up.
Mm-hmm.
Just look up. I don't know which one to side with. Two sides to every story. You know?
The two genders, don't look up and just look up.
I am Jon.
And I'm Pri.
Yeah, what's up?
We're covering a Netflix movie.
Hey, not just any Netflix movie.
Oh.
A good Netflix movie that we like.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Which obviously, shockingly, predictably trashed in ratings. It got 55%.
Kinda.
Pretty abysmal.
I think people came around to it, and I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wrote down was like, it's a real shame that this movie didn't get released in theaters.
Yeah.
Although it had a small run, but it's a shame because it has such a spectacular ending.
I agree.
That you're kind of like, yeah, I want to see that in theaters.
Yeah.
But McKay always wanted it to be a Netflix thing so that he could have the budget to do this sort of thing and also get the most people to see it, which I think is an admirable goal.
Very good.
For a film
Very
that's quite clearly about some pretty prominent social issues.
Mm-hmm.
The movies don't look up.
The movies don't look up.
I think we already said that.
And you know what? I did look up. All right. Regrettably, I am the sheep that does look up. And I was surprised at how much I liked it when I looked it up the second time.
We watched it the day it came out, actually.
Yeah.
Right? The first time we saw it. 2021 film.
Fantastic.
I've always really liked this movie.
Yeah.
I think I watched it the week after it came out again, the second time. I've seen it a couple times now. It's like a really rewatchable film, despite being really upsetting in certain parts.
Because it is meant to be, well, quote unquote, light satire, black comedy that you can watch on an airplane. You can watch it on your phone. You can watch it in bed.
Can I actually throw a quote at you about that?
Yeah.
That he said in David Sims from The Atlantic, also from the Blank Check Pod, he interviewed Adam McKay for this movie, and Adam McKay said to him the goal was to take you through the amusement park ride and have the last stop be whatever, a landfill. And I was like, that is a perfect quote to encapsulate the feeling of watching this film.
Oh my God. And also it's got everybody from the industry. It's got the biggest names.
Okay. I don't know what I want to talk about first.
Okay.
Whether I want to talk about the insane cast and why it's important to have them.
Yeah.
Or the reviews. What do you want to talk about
Let's
first?
talk about the cast, because we know that the reviews were middling just from seeing it on the internet, just from Rotten Tomatoes rating. But I want to talk about all the names that read the script and then were like, fuck yeah, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah. My thought about them is that, like, okay, here's another thing. I will undoubtedly have a point of view about this film that will contradict almost everything I felt about Vice, Adam McKay's previous movie.
Yeah.
Vice is fine. This movie, I think, is much better.
Yes.
I think it's one of Adam McKay's better films.
Yeah.
So the cast, tons of massive names in it. Maybe one of the most stacked films ever
on Netflix.
Ever made in the past, certainly in the past like 20 years. What do we have as far as like Academy Award nominations? Jonah Hill, Leo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Cate Blanchett, Tyler Perry. No, but Tyler Perry's in it.
But Tyler Perry, yeah.
Rob Morgan. The list goes on.
And that's already in the first 10 minutes. Like they almost all show up pretty quickly.
And what I think about having such an interesting cast is that obviously they all care about the issue. And if people don't know, Don't Look Up is an allegory for climate change, but also for a lot of other things.
Yeah.
But also generally for climate change. Obviously, these like wealthy, famous people care about that. And I think it's important that like they're just performers in the world and they can't fix climate change, but they can, yes, get paid millions of dollars probably
30
to
million
be in
be
a
exact.
movie though that's really on the nose about this.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually really kind of cool and important.
Yeah.
Because this movie is like a satire, but it's pretty light because the satire is like, yeah, this is obviously about one thing.
Of course.
This is so obviously about this one thing.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see a lot of movies like that. You know, like I read this like conversation piece again in the Atlantic between like 3 critics or whatever writers there who are talking about the reception of this film. And a lot of people compare it, like bring up the comparison to like The Other Guys. You know how at the end of The Other Guys, which I think is a brilliant film, it like all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, this is all about like financial crime, right?
Right.
You remember that, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh wait, what are you talking? I just wanted to watch a comedy where Samuel L. Jackson and The Rock jump off a roof and die. And then Adam McKay, like he no longer wants to seemingly like sneak his satire into a comedy film. So he does like The Big Short, which I think is an amazing movie.
Yeah.
Even though like The Big Short's one of the funniest movies I've seen in a long time. It has a very similar vibe to this, where it's like all of a sudden it screeches to this very bleak ending.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find this movie tremendously effective at that.
Well, because it's more in the vein of Big Short than it is like Vice.
Big Short is funnier than this movie, though.
Well, of course, Big Short is meant to be more towards a drama than it is towards a comedy. It has comedic themes.
But Big Short is funnier, though.
It has a funny, because it like intentionally
it has funnier performances
and clever writing and better writing than this film.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think so.
And both of these films are already miles ahead of Vice, right? Which
Vice, I think I mean I can go check myself, but like I think the vibe I get from is like Vice is a little too muddled.
Yeah.
And it's not that funny because of it, but also I think a lot of the jokes don't work in it.
No.
You know? And whereas in this movie, I think a lot of the actual jokes really work. But for the most part, it's taking it quite seriously. Like the funniest thing I think so far of the decade is the ongoing snacks bit.
Oh my
that
God.
Jennifer Lawrence obsesses over the guy who charges her for snacks at the White House.
Oh my God. It's so funny.
It's something that makes me laugh to think of all the time.
Yeah.
It's doubly hilarious because, you know, third time for comedy when she brings it up so much later in the film because she's staring at the stars wondering why he would ever charge her for snacks.
So isn't it funny? Because like the large theme of this movie is that people are ignorant and people are hard to convince and there's apathy and they won't address a very true fact that is going to hit them in the face in the near future. And even people who are very involved in looking out for the environment, in being more obvious, like Jennifer Lawrence's character who literally discovers a comet that's supposed to hit Earth.
Destroy Earth.
Even someone who is 100%, you know, in their Greta Thunberg state of mind is still taking time out.
I'm in my Greta Thunberg era.
Yeah. Taking time out to be like, did this fucking guy charge me $10 for a free snack?
Yeah.
And so even her being obsessed with this non-thing is so funny. Injustice is like such a big theme.
You know why though? You know what's so funny about that joke? I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we just ruin it for everybody. But it's like for her, there's like this literal existential crisis.
Yeah.
And the guy who charges her also knows that.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, what could he need an extra $10
for? Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think Jennifer Lawrence is amazing in this film.
Oh, 100%.
I think this is one of her best movies.
100%.
You know what I love about her in this role? If you watch it again, and I urge people to watch this movie, because first of all, it's a real easy film to go down despite the ending. She's such a good reactor to things.
Yeah.
You watch watch her when other people are talking. She's so funny. There's scenes like in the White House office where she's reacting to what Leo is saying or to what Meryl Streep is saying. Yeah. She's so on board.
And like just shaking.
Oh,
but
she's
like
so funny.
in like the slightest way, like eyes, like just her eyes.
Yeah.
Like her eyeballs kind of get a little widen.
And the way she like looks around. And like the part where she's in the conference room screaming and then it cuts immediately to space. That is one of the funniest things.
Hell yeah.
She's so good, man. She's involved in like the funniest parts of this film. What you're saying too is like even people who are involved in the discovery and the science of all of this can be ideologically captured by the moment, which is what happens to Leo DiCaprio's character, right? Yeah. Is like he becomes like famous. He becomes like the Dr. Fauci, where it's like it doesn't even matter what he's saying until he finally snaps and goes crazy at the end.
Exactly.
And
well,
like,
they also show him turning into this like corporate guy where he
becomes part of the administration, right?
Yeah.
And he falls for Cate Blanchett, who has the largest teeth on earth.
It's just the best whatever fake tooth thing they ever used.
We could start a family home on those teeth, man. Yeah, they're amazing.
Second story mouth house.
Lydia Tarr has never looked so good. Yeah.
Oh,
but it's like I love the on the noseness of this.
Me too.
I struggle even to call it satire because I'm just kind of like it's not though. It's
because
like
it feels like Veep. Kind of.
And one of the struggles that Adam McKay mentioned in a lot of interviews was like this movie starts and it's in production, starting to get filmed, I think, and then the pandemic hits. All of these jokes that he's doing to satirize real life, he's like, these are not funny anymore because they're happening.
Yep.
And the difficulty of satirizing situations that are just like, but that really is like sort of happening.
Totally.
Is so interesting. And I still think he does a good job of it. Although I think a lot of the Ariana Grande, Kid Cudi news media stuff is not great. But the way that they represent the apathy of people makes a lot of sense.
But it's still effective and it works because they actually got actual Ariana Grande, actual Kid Cudi to play like an exaggerated satire self of themselves.
Ariana Grande is funny in this.
She kills it, man. Have you seen her in any of the SNLs or just even like a YouTube video?
I just know that gal can sing.
She does incredible impressions.
Really?
Spot on. It would chill you to your bones.
Who does she do? Like Donald Trump?
So good. And I can't even.
Does she do a good Jeremy Irons? Because I'm always looking out for celebrities.
I trust her to be able to do it. What is that? Jeremy, is that you?
Jeremy
in a ponytail?
No, it's me, the Disney princess Ariana Grande. People hate her.
People are idiots, man.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I've never
People
been
also
like,
hate this movie, which I'm like, come on, have you seen a movie?
All right, yeah. Can we talk about it? Like what the reception for this movie I think softened over time, but it was interesting at the time because like so many people who you thought would be like who are pretty much professed to be like ideologically on the same side are just kind of like yeah, but this kind of satire won't work. And it's like, but what do you mean? Like, what are you talking? Like, it's not even really meant to be on the nose. And so you can't like totally criticize it for that, I don't think.
But this is why, okay, I'm going to go on like a 50-year-old dad rant here. This is why the left...
Hit me, Papa.
The left will never be aligned, okay?
Whoa.
Because the far left is too obsessed with these bullshit little nuances to just agree on the grand issue together.
Yeah.
And that's what this film like perfectly encapsulates. Like obviously you've got like a Trumpian Meryl Streep who is in power, who's just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just beautiful and I'm a star and I get to be the president. And then people who objectively are quote unquote smarter than her are still like, why is she on the screen right now? Yeah. But okay, she looks good. But it's like, no, just get to the point where you all agree that she shouldn't be here instead of already criticizing.
Yeah, there's a tendency among like, okay, to be perfectly clear, like I consider myself fairly progressive and you do as well. And even if you don't, you are because I know you. But like there's a tendency for progressive people to eat themselves in a group.
Yeah.
And about things that matter though, because there's also that tendency among like very right-wing people. You see it all the time, how they're like, but they are always like infighting about stuff where you're just like,
Doesn't
but
matter.
none of that is true. So it doesn't, like, they're infighting about Donald Trump winning an election that he never won, kind of, and you're like,
who cares?
And it's all stuff where you're just like, well, you guys should fight about whether that is actually real or not, you know, because like a lot of that stuff doesn't matter. But sometimes you get this tendency on the left for people to like go after other people for not being hardcore enough about one belief. But it's like, yeah, but we can all agree that climate change matters, right?
But then they're so busy fighting amongst themselves rather than rallying together against the quote unquote big evil, which is, you know, climate change. Like, instead of coming together to fight against that, we're like, okay, but you wear white and I wear blue, so fuck you. It's like, guys, we all know that.
There's also like there's also problems right now in front of us. I saw a headline today where it was on like a study that someone put where most Canadians don't worry too a lot about like kitchen, not too much. It was like they worry most about kitchen table problems, what's happening right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Climate change is like a future you problem.
Sure.
And it's like, I understand that sentiment, but there's so many things happening in the world that are like, no, this is also like a kitchen table problem, because if you live in the central
if you
Okanagan,
live in Canada, you're gonna burn
like
first.
if you live in like a place, it's like your kitchen table could be on fire right now
exactly,
because of these problems, right? And it seems so abstract, and I understand that that's like the issue. I read this book, a very popular book about climate change called The Uninhabitable Earth, and one of the things that he talks about a lot in it is like the ability for people to grasp the issues of climate change. It's too much. It's too existential, not because it's like it's hard to get people to know that it's like this could like end humanity as we know it. It's because it's so complex that you can't even really comprehend it. It involves so many factors that it's just not really a thing that you can comprehend.
No.
And so you have to like break it down like piece by piece. And I think that's something that this movie does, right? Where it's like an asteroid will hit Earth. There's one problem. Climate change is many problems, all compounding.
Yeah.
This movie is like, this is the one problem.
Yeah.
And then it takes certain issues that could conceivably happen with that. Like people being like, it's not real. And people being like, no, it is real. And making them very clear.
Oh my
That's
God.
what I think the strength of the film is.
Even when they do agree that, okay, let's say there is a comet coming towards Earth, and let's say we have a plan to destroy it and save our planet.
Mm-hmm.
Even midway through solving that problem, there is a big like greed that gets in the way.
Yeah, Academy Award winner Mark Rylance shows up. Yeah. Our like 6th Academy Award winning actor in this fucking thing.
So many gems. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know, what if the comet's like made of diamonds, guys? We can actually do something with it.
That I think is that's such a brutal part of the film, because it just seems
devastating.
So and the part too that really affected me last time I watched it was when he was like, oh, we could end human hunger and stuff like that, and it's just like, but you just won't, because there's people alive on Earth right now who have that kind of money, and they're just kind of like, yeah, but I want to own a social network and turn it into a Nazi haven.
Exactly.
You know?
And now I can make 2 of those.
I'm not saying any names here. I'm just that's just a hypothetical situation. You know.
Wait, what is the organization called? Bash. Yeah.
Which is funny because it's like a mobile infrastructure network or whatever it's like a cell phone company.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was texting a friend the other day about Lord of the Rings, and my joke was that I was like, I bet if J.R.R. was alive today, he would be like, I hope my property is owned by a delivery company. And that's kind of like, this is like,
yeah, exactly.
Bash is like the Apple, the Steve Jobsian Apple Amazon kind of deal, who like just is like a tech company, but there's so much more than that. And they have like, it's so funny the way that Rylance has Meryl Streep on a leash all the time. And I love that shit. But it is like a particularly brutal aspect where you're just kind of like, I don't know. I love another joke that I caught this time, which I didn't remember, was how the head of NASA is an anesthesiologist. and they keep
that's right.
And Leo DiCaprio keeps bringing it up like under his breath.
Oh, that's right. so
funny.
The first time when Leo DiCaprio and J-Law find out that the comet's coming towards the Earth, they call the head of NASA and they're like, "Did you see the shit?" And she's like, "I don't know. Maybe. I mean, let's talk to the president." And then later we find out that she kind of ixnays the project.
Well, she then does like a study of her own to say that it doesn't
It's not a problem.
exist.
It's
And
a
then
lie.
when President Orlean needs it to her advantage, that woman is like, it's so funny. That actor is great. I think that character's name is Jocelyn, I think. But that actress she's fantastic. I've seen her in a bunch of things. But there's this part where Orlean needs the Comet Redirection Project to win the midterm.
Yeah.
And so she forwards it, and then she's just like, well, I guess our study was wrong. And then the head of NASA lady is just like, well, I'll resign. Just like but you can tell she's just doing it to take the fall for this person she's a total sycophant for.
Yeah.
And then later she's back. She's back on like the Bash project or whatever.
Oh my God.
It's very funny. Yeah.
It's so, and the reason I find this movie effective is because it's meant to be comedy. And you are kind of laughing through these Jonah Hill bits and, Meryl Streep being a dumb bitch. And it's just, it's effective because there are these huge faces that deliver it perfectly.
Yeah.
And then like midway through, you're like, this is depressing, man.
The last
because we're in it.
The last 20 minutes are like, I think the
rough,
most effective and best part of the film, but like not for funny reasons.
Not for funny reasons.
It's like really jarring to watch.
I know why the audience may have been split on this is because they wanted like a ha 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 the whole time.
Oh yeah, but that's such an effective turn though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To make it not
exactly. And but then they felt cheated going in, being like, oh.
It's weird when people like criticize the film for being like, it's too accurate. I don't think that's a very good criticism. It's too on the nose. Yeah, I guess you can criticize that, but like, what good is this message? Because I think McKay maybe felt that way too, because it's like, what good is this message if people are there's still people. One of our political parties in Canada still can't agree that climate change is caused by people. They are still their official position is that no position. And it's like this is still an open argument. So I don't believe the science is an open argument, but it is like an argument that people are willing to have. And that's what's so fucking absurd about it. Whereas it's so funny because like at the time of The Big Short, people were like, yeah, the financial crisis was a bad thing, And so it's easier to say...
But they like put the blame on just the thing itself and not on people? Yeah,
but there's not as many detractors, whereas like in the political sphere, there are so many detractors about climate change.
Yeah.
The other thing that's weird is like, so speaking of The Big Short, like I'm actually really fascinated by the financial crisis because of its complexity. I find that stuff like I'll read like any books on it. You know how you as a 50-year-old dad, you're probably obsessed with like Hitler and World War II because
100%.
that's what dads do.
Yeah.
And well, I love World War II. I'm a big fan, but I'm super obsessed with the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And I find all of that material really interesting. And I read this book it wasn't about the financial crisis, but it was about like the libertarian influence on politics in America.
Oh.
And one of the things, I believe it's by a very famous New Yorker writer. I think it's called Dark Money. It was a long time ago, but something she talked about, which I found so like jarring, was that years after the financial crisis, once there was like some recovery in place, all of the big libertarian fucking influencer people went out and they started just being like, yeah, the financial crisis that happened because of regulations, so we need to deregulate further. And stuff was like, and they start pushing this message being like, regulation was and it was like, no, it wasn't. That was the problem, was deregulation. The whole huge part of it was this deregulation. And that's what like this movie does about climate change. Is like there are people out there too who they take these positions, or they find people to take the like lackeys to take these positions in the public sphere to be like, well, I don't know if this forest fire could be blamed on climate change. And it's like, and going back to what I said earlier, because it's so complex, it's like for the layperson like you and I, you could be like, yeah, I mean, someone dropped a lit cigarette in the woods.
Yeah.
And it's but a lot of that is because it's like dry out for reasons. There's a drought. There's all these
Yeah.
all of these
Why would
compounding
it-
issues.
Yeah, we're in the rainforest. Why would it catch fire
Yeah.
if it's meant to be nourished by
Yeah.
rain?
When I was in Italy last year, I was there and I was in an area close to these like horrible floods that were happening
Oh shit,
in
that's
Italy,
right.
And I was looking into it and I was like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Which, because like I don't know how floods work. I'm not a geologist or whoever does those kinds of things. See, I don't even know the name of the
You're
person.
not a flood scientist.
I'm not a floodist. I'm not
You're
a
not a
floodite.
flood doctor.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not a flood
No.
doctor. So I was there and I was like, how does this happen? And what was happening was that part of Italy had a drought for like a year, like a
Shit.
severe drought.
Yeah.
And that compacts the soil,
Oh.
and then all of a sudden they get this insane rainfall where
Yeah.
they dropped a month's worth of rain in 48 hours.
Right.
The soil can't absorb it, and so all the water just runs downhill.
Shit.
And I was just like, yeah, that's a thing. That's such an easy explanation for what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, that's my rant about climate change, people. It's real, and don't fucking vote conservative if you know what you're doing.
Just, all right. Look, it's not even whether it's conservative or not. At this point in this movie, whoever is in power, liberal or conservative, they end up going to these people. Supposedly NASA is liberal. Yes? You go to someone.
You would think that
you would think
that they're not ideologically captured by
By
a
bureaucracy.
certain anything, right? They're supposed to be science first.
Correct. Right? And so you would think scientists and science doctors from NASA would be like,
They have flood doctors.
they're
they
the
have,
first to know about climate change,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
see that shit from literally 90,000 miles in the sky. And so when
they see a huge cloud coming over
Yeah.
coming over Louisiana with a big frowny face on it. Yeah.
grumpy cloud incoming.
Oh boy.
And so for this movie, for these astrology students, physicists,
Astrologists. Yeah.
to oh my god, really? I'm not a word scientist, all right? So they go to NASA first, hoping that you could get them to rally with you
Mhm.
in knowing that this danger is imminent and they can see it. But the best part is the inaction on both parts.
But also the action against them too. The action to sit, like when they first have the meeting with Orlean and she's like, we'll just sit tight, but then also enacts this position to fortify her position that this isn't happening.
Totally. It's like when you don't vote, you basically vote conservative. If you're on the fence, you are conservative. It's like if you don't take action, you're doing the bad thing.
Yeah, like inaction can be as harmful as
and that
as
is
like
I
action.
feel like that is the point of this movie. Like all this inaction is coming from us being distracted by social media or us just like watching the television instead of like looking up at the sky.
Apathy is easier. It's just an easier position to take.
Yeah.
And also you don't actually the thing that's so scary about climate change and what I think is actually beautiful about this movie is that apathy is just such an easier position to take, but you also don't have to risk anything.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately for you are risking something.
Yeah.
You're like climate change isn't going to be like, well, this person voted Democrat, so I'm not going to kill them.
I'm not going to kill
It's going to end humanity with the way it's indiscriminate.
Yeah.
And what I think is beautiful about this film is that whenever I think of that, is like this isn't a partisan problem. It's a humanity problem, and everyone is involved. Whether you want to sit somewhere and be like, I don't think it exists or not, you are involved in it and you partake in it. You can take actions to mitigate it on your own life. You should want to do those things because people deserve to live and humanity deserves to live on.
Mm-hmm.
Despite all of our problems, it's like, yeah, but people are like beautiful things. And you shouldn't, like, after you're dead, whether you have kids or not, it doesn't really matter. But after you're dead, you shouldn't feel like, it's not going to matter, because it's like humanity is like it's just an amazing thing, and they should get to experience the earth in all of its like glory. It's going to change no matter what, right? And eventually humanity
100%.
will die.
Yeah.
But it's like, why would you not care? Why would you just be like, I got TikTok in my lifetime and I'm happy with it. All right, fuck you. The thing that always boggles my mind about people who don't believe in climate change is like if they have kids and stuff, it's kind of like how can you reconcile that? Like I don't have children, but it's like how can you reconcile the idea that you're just like, yeah, in 30 years when my child is an adult, the earth is just gonna be the same thing. It's like, it's not
worse,
though.
Worse.
You know?
It's gonna be way worse.
Yeah.
They're going to be sweating all the time. They're going to be smelly and stinky and sweaty because of you. Because, you used up too much of the air conditioning in your lifetime and you heated up the planet. But in this movie, they do such a good job of making sure everybody is the culprit, including the protagonist, like Leo.
Yeah.
Who like strays away from his goal of educating the people, like, guys, a fucking like ball of fire is hurtling towards Earth. Like, look up. And he gets swayed away by distractions of Cate Blanchett's teeth. Yeah. And he gets distracted by fame.
He gets ideologically captured to an extent. Yeah. And then when, like, I love the repeated joke of the black bag, but like they black bag them and like put them in the back of a
in
car.
The car.
Yeah.
They put a bag over their heads because it's what the CIA does, guys.
Yeah.
It's fucking great.
Yeah.
I mean, there is good reason in just media in general when they're like, oh, the world is run by idiots, quote unquote. When you put someone in power like Trump, it is your doing. Because of your action/inaction, he is here now. There is no solution to it.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful ending because it is a true ending.
Yeah.
Because we have lived it and we've witnessed it in 2016.
But also, like, here's something that really affected me this time watching it was that, like, the line that always gets me is when Leo is like talking about coffee and stuff, and he's just like, yeah, like, we really did have everything. He's just a middle class guy from Wisconsin or Michigan rather. Mm-hmm. And I always find that so striking because I'm just like, yeah, like us in the first world, like in North America, it's like we kind of like, yes, there are problems, but we can kind of have anything we want.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of the things that we do that harm the planet are going to disproportionately harm people in like Bangladesh and India and Africa and places like this, places where we don't really have to care about the problem. Like, it's not, when we emit greenhouse gases, it's not just like, oh, it just stays in the air above Canada. It doesn't do that. Like, it will disproportionately harm people who we don't have to see or frankly care about because we're just like, oh, we get to live in here. But like, we're just like two middle class people here, and it's like, you just ordered someone to bring you groceries.
Exactly.
Like anything you wanted.
Exactly. I was literally just thinking that 30 seconds ago. Like, I have DoorDash privilege.
Yeah. I made fucking pancakes with chocolate chips, maple syrup, and berries. Like, we can have everything. And that's why I find this movie so rewatchable, because in the end, it's such a sobering reminder that it's like, you don't have to be Elon Musk to be able to have like a fucking great life. Yeah. You know, there's that sorry to evoke his name, but Louis C.K. has that joke about Americans being whiny, and he's like Americans are like whiny with a great life. Like, we have more than the average Canadian.
Well, he's like, I'm in the sky 30,000 feet above and my Wi-Fi is not working. Fuck.
Yeah, and like, and he's like, you didn't know this existed until 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and now you're mad.
That, I think of that all the time. I think of the line in this film because I'm just like, it's my thought about climate change is always like, you should sacrifice something to mitigate your footprint on the earth. Yeah, you should be willing to sacrifice stuff right now because against your will, you will be sacrificing stuff later. Right. Because climate change will affect us in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And it has already, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that you should be prepared for that sacrifice, you know, because life probably won't always be super easy and we might not have all of these privileges. No. And we should try to bear in mind that it's like we are incredibly privileged. But the other thing that really struck me this time when I watched it was when Jennifer Lawrence was like, I'm grateful we tried. That's also really important because like those two people can't solve the crisis. Yeah. But if everyone got into their Greta Thunberg era, we kind of could.
I mean, they did get people to #look up, right? And even though it was late, it doesn't matter that it was late.
I would rather try. But I'd rather sit at that dinner table having tried than take off to another planet and get eaten. Although, if someone offered me a thing on board the spaceship, I would fucking go. That would be sick.
I would take it ASAP.
I would take it, yeah. Sorry for all the demagoguery about fucking progressive ideals about the climate.
But nobody disagrees with like what we're saying right now anyway, right? At least the people we generally talk to.
I mean, if you if you do, like, you can agree or disagree about the quality of the film, but like, if you don't believe that climate change is caused by people, then it's a whole other. That's a whole other can of worms.
That's a different, that's a different education point then. Why would Adam McKay and Leo DiCaprio choose to Leo DiCaprio especially, he's like such a vocal activist for climate change.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the reviews is like, I think the most unbelievable sci-fi part of this film is that Leo's in love with someone his own age, blah blah blah, Cate Blanchett, da da da.
Yeah.
And so it's, again, shit like that distracts from the point of the film itself.
That's a way to, exactly, to detract from the message of the film by bringing up a thing that's like
entertainment related.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be very high-minded about a silly black comedy like this, right? It is effective because it is true.
Yeah.
And yet we do the same things that these people in this movie do, where they're like, #don't look up.
Yeah.
Look down.
Yeah.
And we're kind of doing the same thing, even when it's packaged in this digestible entertainment form for us to.
I might be preaching, but I'm not perfect in any regard of this. Like, no one is. And the thing is, like, you shouldn't expect perfection from yourself or from anyone else, because that's impossible.
Yeah.
But like one of the issues I have sometimes with, like, when I read or take part in like climate change discourses, whenever you bring up a solution to some people, they're always like, well, that doesn't actually solve every single problem, so it's not worth doing. And it's like, no, that's the point though, is like small things do solve problems.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, just because like one thing can't solve the millions upon millions of problems that are associated with climate change doesn't mean it's not worth doing, you know? It's
like having a to-do list where even if you knock off a few things, you feel good about yourself.
Well, it's like doing almost any sort of project that takes more than one step. Yeah. All of those steps matter, you know? Anyway. Fuck everybody.
Fucking enraging film.
Unbelievable.
Damn.
Do we want to talk about the plot? I got stuff about the plot.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence, she's getting her PhD at the University of Michigan, which is a joke that comes up later.
Jonah Hill's like...
Jonah Hill is fucking amazing.
Give him multiple Oscars, I've said before.
I don't think he ever got a script. I think Adam McKay was like, just do your thing. And
Jonah, just be you.
Yeah.
Just bring yourself from Superbad and then imagine he's wearing a suit. You're good to go, baby.
There's like one joke where he comes out and like Leo DiCaprio, Rob Morgan, and Jennifer Lawrence are all in the room.
Yeah.
And he looks at her and she's like, gentlemen, come in.
Gentlemen.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay.
She discovers Comet DiBiase, which will eventually be named after her, Cate DiBiase. And Leonardo DiCaprio, the PhD advisor, he calculates that it'll hit Earth in 6 months. And it's around 9 kilometers wide, so it's a planet killer. So it'll basically wipe out humanity on Earth. They meet with Rob Morgan, who is... What does Rob Morgan do in this? He's connected to the government. He works for NASA, I think.
I guess.
Yeah.
I missed the job title, but anyway.
Anyway, they meet with Rob Morgan, tell him about it. He gets them a meeting with President Orlean, which it doesn't happen at first because they were celebrating the birthday of the secretary or whatever.
Oh, God, right.
And, then they finally talk to her about it, and they make it very clear what's happening. And she says, "Oh, we'll just sit on it and wait." She decides not to do anything. So they go to the New York Herald to leak it to the press. And I really like, speaking of satire, I think this stuff about leaking it to the paper is effective satire, because they go not for the Daily Rip, which is the show that they go on with Tyler Perry and Cate Blanchett and Cate Blanchett's huge teeth to talk about this, but the way that everyone at the Herald is just cares more about the social media impact and the media impact, and then Jennifer Lawrence fucks it all up by freaking out. And there's this clip. I was watching a clip earlier where she does the like, we're all gonna fucking die, and runs off the set. And there's a cut to Rob Morgan at his couch at home being like, "Oh no, don't do that." and first of all, Rob Morgan's amazing in this. The way that he knows that it's like, you're not going to convince anyone
by
if you
being
shriek
emotional
about it. Yeah. At the same time, it's like, as a viewer, it's like, well, I do relate to Jennifer Lawrence in this moment.
Yeah.
You know? And then I love Tyler Perry's delivery where he's like, oh yeah, you were great, buddy, but like maybe she needs a little media training.
He's so good in this movie.
Tyler Perry's a fucking amazing actor.
Great anyway.
He's a great actor. Yeah. He's great in Vice. He's great in Vice as Colin Powell.
He is arguably like older than Leonardo DiCaprio in this scene.
Leo's playing. He seems a little younger, but
Leo's supposed to be playing like a 40, 50-year-old guy, I think, right?
Yeah.
And having him sit next to Tyler Perry, what a crime. Sorry, Leo, but oh my gosh, Mr. Perry looking like a diamond.
$1 million.
Okay.
I love how schlubby Leo looks.
And Leo, they've dressed him down. They've given him a terrible goatee. He looks like just like a tired IT professor. And then the fact that Cate Blanchett is just gaga over Leo.
Yeah, it's so funny.
She's sitting next to Tyler Perry. She's like, oh my God, a hot scientist.
Kate Blanchett plays like she's one of the best pieces of shit in the industry.
Holy shit.
She's so good at playing like a really dislikable character.
Yeah.
Even in something like Tar, where like you were just watching Tar the other day, and like spoiler alert, Tar is a fucking great movie.
Tar rips.
I've seen that movie a couple times now because it's again very rewatchable. And she has all these like small moments in Tar where you're just kind of like, oh, you're such a fucking bitch.
You're such
like,
an asshole.
The moment where her kind old mentor gives her the quote, and then she doesn't realize it's a blurb for her book. And then when she puts it, she's like, oh, yeah, like I'll give it to my publisher. Oh, boy, I hope there's still time. And you're just like, oh, you fucking asshole.
Yeah,
like, why do you have to, like, you know, you do this because you don't know, he doesn't fucking recognize it, but like, yeah, he's such a bitch.
I know.
And in this, she's like totally over the top, and she's amazing. Yeah.
The like almost like psychopathy of these characters is so much more obvious as it goes on in the duration of the film. At first you're like, okay, they're just like, you know, anchors. They're just TV people. They're just social media obsessed. But then more and more it goes on. You're like, they're all fucking sociopathic. They're all so self-obsessed and almost to the detriment to themselves, right?
The thing is that like in situations like this, right? If you're the person like screaming fire in the crowded movie theater, you're the asshole when you're wrong, but everyone is alive to see that you're the asshole when you're wrong. Yeah. So it's easier for people to kind of be like, yeah, but I can just kind of pretend that nothing will happen, and then I can be among the people being like, listen to this asshole. But if you're right and you're the asshole yelling fire and there's a fire and everyone dies, doesn't matter, everyone's dead.
Exactly.
So
it's a lose-lose for you.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's exactly what Jennifer Lawrence is like, she loses in this situation.
That's
so
creepy.
NASA does their own study. They deny that the anesthesiologist denies that the comet is actually happening. Orlean is involved with the scandal with the Supreme Court judge, the sex scandal, which is very mirrored with like Trump and that that
Stormy Daniels.
No, the guy Brett.
Kavanaugh.
Brett Kavanaugh, yeah, yeah, who was like honestly one of my personal heroes.
What a gem.
Yeah, Brett Kavanaugh.
Can't believe that guy's real. He's a real guy.
I think despite all the personal stuff, great judge.
Great. A judge of what, though?
I wish he was on The Good Wife, you know? He'd be one of those character judges.
I want him to be like America's Next Top Model judge.
One of that line that really fucking tickled us when it was like, what started as a picture of an armpit or whatever.
Oh my God.
That really got me.
It was an armpit at first.
Yeah.
Oh.
So she's involved with that, and then it's going to affect her showing in the midterms, so she decides that the comet does exist, and she brings them back in to be like, congratulations, the comet exists. And they're like, okay, so now you're gonna get your shit together and do something to, you know,
oh my God, mitigate
the damage or whatever. So
they even when they talk about it in the media, there's like people holding boards that call it sluts cause doom, or and just the gays are ending the planet.
I love McKay's semi-docu style of filming where like, especially there's that scene in the street with what's his name, Jivan from Station 11,
Yeah.
J-Law, and DiCaprio, and the way he kind of like films from far away, and there's always people passing in front of the camera and stuff. He does it a lot in The Big Short, and I really love that style. It can be so tremendously effective.
Yeah.
But the way that it's like cut and just like so quickly edited and stuff, he gets so much, and it's so rewarding to focus on what's happening outside the focal point and like see like all of it. I love that style. It's not for everybody and it's not for every film, but I love the way he accomplishes it. I think it's very cool.
He uses it sparingly too. It's like
but like
kinda.
especially the way it's like cut through all of these things and then you catch things at different times.
Ugh.
And like again, the rewatchability, like that armpit joke, I didn't remember it until this time, and it just made me absolutely
and now it's
fucking
staying in our mind
die.
forever.
Yeah, they want to like divert the comet with nukes, so they get Ron Perlman to,
Oh my god,
who's like he's Bruce Willis from Armageddon essentially.
Yeah,
and he goes and launches this mission, and he has the line about Indians, which I think is fucking hysterical.
Oh god,
This goes out to all the Indians, both kinds.
Both kinds. Yeah, baby.
And then they call it off because Mark Rylance has decided that he can mine the comet with his super duper company that's not unlike some billionaires' space projects.
They discovered that this comet has precious minerals that can never be found on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so in pure interest of greed, they decide to not destroy the comet.
They're going to mine the comet and break it apart and yada yada.
Ugh.
And that's the whole thing. So they stop that, and then that project will take time to get done, and it's not been peer reviewed that it'll actually work.
Yeah.
But Mindy, DiCaprio's character, has been ideologically captured and becomes part of the president's administration, and he tries to kind of like change it from within, whereas Jennifer Lawrence does not go along with any of this, and she gets black bagged by the CIA, and then she has to sign away her like she can't talk outwardly in public about anything,
course.
and then she signs it and is like, I don't care. She goes back to live with her parents and work in a liquor store.
Yeah. Get the Ron Perlman scene that you were talking about earlier when he's on the plane, he's about to take off, and he does all his wonderful racist rants.
There's parts where people are like, yeah, he's a different generation.
It's a different generation. It's so funny the way that like after he says these horrendous things just towards the end, it's like a different generation.
Yeah.
Boom, swept under the rug. Yeah. Fantastic. That's all they do to address it. It's perfect.
Yeah. DiCaprio starts an affair with Blanchett, which is eventually broken up by Melanie Linsky, his wife, which is a very good scene. Blanchett's a true piece of shit in that.
Man. Yep.
Jennifer Lawrence is back home. She's working in a liquor store where she meets Yule, played by Timothée Chalamet.
Yule?
I did not care for Chalamet when I first saw this. I loved him this time.
It was
he's
perfect.
So good in this film.
He's so good, dude.
Yeah. I'm not a big Chalamet head, and I was like, this might be his best work.
I agree.
I think
I totally
really
agree.
Good. Yeah.
Because like he's effective in his costume and his everything just works for Yule. Even his name.
Yule.
It's like, it tracks, dude.
Yeah.
And when we get to the ending, I want to talk about Chalamet a little bit, but we can continue for now.
He's in the last like 10 minutes of the film, he's fantastic. Yeah.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Mindy, finally, he also has a breakdown on television on the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
And then also on the Daily Rip, he like goes off, which I think is a very effective scene too. He gets black bagged by the CIA as well, which is another fantastic editing joke. And then he decides, and then this is when DiBiase sees her comet.
Yeah.
And she sees that it's actually visible in space, and that if you just look up, you can see it. And they start this whole campaign, the Just Look Up campaign, which the presidential people are just like, don't look up. It doesn't exist. They also cut Russia, China, and India out of the proceeds from the comet. Those three countries do a joint effort to do the nuke thing, and that launch explodes on the launch pad. And it's done. That's basically it. If the bash thing doesn't work, then that's it for Earth. And Mindy knows that. And so him and J-Law, basically, they're like, let's go home to Michigan. And he reconnects with his wife. They bring Yule for their supper and stuff. And then
even when Timothée Chalamet's in the car with them, what is he? He's like, can I be vulnerable in your car?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And it's so perfect. He's like, it's a beautiful moment. It's beautiful.
They go home for their supper. The bash launch, which is to mine it, fails. Rylance and Orlean abandon Jonah Hill on Earth to go to their spaceship.
She's his mother.
Yeah. She
President
forgets
of
too.
America.
That's the joke. It's like she forgets.
She's like, I'll be
Yeah.
right back. No, you stay. And
Yeah.
then she just leaves the room and the planet.
No, she like doesn't even think about it, because when she calls
Oh my
Leo
God.
DiCaprio, she's like, you can come on this ship, and he's like, you know what? Enjoy your time with your son. And she's like, my son? Oh shit.
Oh, fucking
Yeah.
hell. Just wild.
And then the final kind of montage of the comet actually impacting Earth is pretty fucking great.
yeah.
There's a shot of the indigenous guy drumming while the meteorites fall on the forest. That's an unbelievable shot.
Look, you're totally right.
So cool.
The last like 5-10 minutes, even the around the table where Leo's sitting with his family and Timmy Chalamet's there.
Rob Morgan also shows up too.
And he shows up and J-Law's there and Timothy's like, okay, I could do a lead the prayer towards the end, and he like grabs everybody's hand, and it is so affecting.
Yeah.
Because his delivery of that 3 lines of prayer or whatever that speech was, that is his fucking the king moment.
Yeah.
That is how he is in that other film. That
Yeah.
is how he, ends up being on Arrakis too. Like, that is that power that you kind of pull out of Timmy Chalamet toward the end.
Oh yeah.
And it's perfect because the whole time he's just like, yeah, I fucking love fingerling potatoes, dude. And then at the end, it's just like, okay, I will lead us into death.
Yeah, but he's like thoughtful though. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
then just that whole sequence with like the table shaking and stuff. It's just so like that it's just such a fucking, it's hard to describe how good it is.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite scenes from a film in many years. Like, I think it's so well filmed and it's so thoughtfully filmed and kind of like beautiful in the things that they say, which we've talked about. And then just like the part where just the fire just like explodes on the screen. It's just like, yeah.
The red, orange, yellow.
But also just like there's like the slow motion, and then all of a sudden just like the fire just bursting onto the screen is just so
Extinction, baby.
Yeah. And then there's like basically like the credits, although there's some post-credit stuff.
So if this movie had ended here, great.
One of the best movies of the year.
One of the best movies. Just ended here. But then, like Marvel styles, they do 2 fucking post-credits, which takes away.
I dislike both of them. I think the Jonah Hill one I could get away with.
Yeah.
But the middle one where they land on the planet, can I say something about what happens there?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rylance owns this company that's like a social media company. And he makes this joke where he's like, our algorithms are so accurate, we can even predict how you'll die.
Yeah.
And he says to Leo DiCaprio, he's like, you're going to die alone, which he's wrong about. He's not going to die alone, right? But he says to Susan Orlean, not the author,
Streep,
not the orchid thief, the president, which is, I think, a reference to the fact that Meryl Streep played Susan Orlean in Adaptation.
Oh, shit. Maybe
President Orlean.
Oh.
Anyway, that was just a little film stuff.
That would be fucking cool.
Adaptation, another good movie.
Another one that Meryl Streep is absolutely fucking brilliant.
Amazing in, yeah.
I think these two, between this and Adaptation, Meryl,
she was in a
what
pretty good movie called The Deer Hunter too, but no one's ever seen that. But anyway, he says, "Oh, you're gonna get eaten by a Brontarok," I think is the word for it. And then like that's what happens on the planet.
I know,
which is like, okay, so Dan Harmon on his podcast long ago, which I've been listening to lately just as background noise. He has this thing about the Monopoly Man in Ace Ventura 2. Okay. And how like there's this joke about this guy dressed as the Monopoly Man, but the joke only works because the costumer and the director and the writer put in a joke about the Monopoly Man, and then they were like, if we dress this guy up as the Monopoly Man, that's really funny. But it's a joke that
only makes 3 people are in on.
It makes no real sense in reality because like it's a coincidence that's completely manufactured by the film,
right?
And that's what this joke is, and that's why it's not funny because it's just kind of like, oh well, yeah, but that doesn't really make sense in reality.
I even now in
can I point out another example?
Yeah,
and people might not like this. Everything Everywhere All at Once does the same thing.
Yeah,
with Raccacoonie. They talk.
She
makes a joke about Ratatouille, the film.
Yeah.
Then she talks about Raccacoonie, And then there's a joke where she ends up going to a universe where a raccoon is like ratatouilleing a guy in a restaurant. And I'm just like, that's funny like one time. And then you're like, oh, well, you just made that happen. So like, it's not like funny in reality. Like, I don't know.
It's the power of your universe.
It's a really weird type of joke where it doesn't really hide the joke coming from you. It just acts on the fact that they've already written a thing, or I don't know.
I thought it was more meta than that. I thought it was about, if you put something out in the universe, you manifest it for long enough, it eventually happens.
Like the Bronterrock eating her?
Yeah, because, and this is two ways that I think this is true. When the guy Peter, the Elon Musk of this film, is like, I'm gonna, Leo DiCaprio, when you die, you're gonna be alone. Because in Peter's universe, Leo's going to be with him on the ship, which doesn't happen, right? So he leaves. So he doesn't follow Peter's manifestation there. And then in the second one, when he's like, well, Meryl Streep's going to be with me, so I know how she's going to die. So all these deaths and lives and happenings and truths are in relation to the Peter CEO character.
I disagree.
Because he's the one who creates the technology to leave the planet. But
it's just an algorithm, though. The algorithm just predicts what's going to happen regardless.
But like, he created the algorithm based on the truths and the world that he shaped because of his technology. And all the failings that this world suffers because of him not sharing his technology for ending world hunger or taking care of the people. He just does it for greed, and then any outcome is either a pro or a con personally for him, not for the planet.
Babe, I still don't think it's funny.
It's not. It's not meant to be funny, right? It's like meant to be bleak. Of course it's meant
to be funny. When she gets eaten by the thing, of course
sure.
It's meant to be funny.
Well, in the instance of this, yes. But I just mean in the large scale of things when technologists control 90% of the resources.
That's a whole other conversation. I didn't think of it that deeply. I just thought it was a dumb joke.
That's what I was like, oh, maybe it's deeper than...
It's not.
It's Adam McKay. It always is.
It's never deep. He's complete surface level all the time.
He basically created it. We should all be afraid of technology.
I actually, like, one thing I haven't said yet, but I'll say right now. Adam McKay is personally responsible for climate change.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he made this film. But then the other post-credits, which I think works better, is Jonah Hill is still alive on Earth.
He's the only person living.
He doesn't know that. It could be a road situation.
He's the last man on Earth, baby. And
then the movie ends, and it's a good film.
This movie's about my boys, T-Rexes, and other dinosaurs.
Yep.
Yeah. Throwback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Pretty good on the first watch. Really good on the second watch.
Every subsequent watch, I've liked it more and more.
So good. Yeah. There's all these excellent, like, little goofy lines and tight writing. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, I think it's like this and like Big Short, other guys, his best movies. Yeah. Okay. It's weird to talk about his career because he's had such different sides of it.
Yeah.
Because like he made Anchorman up to now, which is and some of his like stuff like Vice didn't work for me, but this does. Like it's hard, really. Yeah.
It's also he does the job of like a smart person who conveys the information in pieces that a dumb person like me would understand it, because he packages it in entertainment, but then the underlying message comes through with impact no matter what.
Do you think this movie's smug? Lots of people I read were like, it's like smug in its like message, you know?
Well, it would be smug if the smug people won in the end, and they don't. They all die.
Yeah, like everyone just dies.
So it's not smug at all. In fact, it's just like a cry for help.
Yeah.
and if anything, it's quite pathetic.
It's weird to call it smug because of what you just said, but also because it's like, I find sometimes that whenever I read stuff like that, I'm like, that's just people being defensive because they don't want to hear the message of the film, I guess. Like, and it's like, it's easy to be like, don't preach to me. Exactly. And it's like, and sometimes I feel that way about other movies, you know, like, like I know exactly how that feels, but like this one just kind of works for me because it's about an issue I care about. Yeah.
Ugh, Jonah Hill, you're welcome on this pod anytime. Just be yourself.
Adam McKay is welcome as soon as he fixes climate change, because I'm kind of angry about that he's just been fucking around making movies. We good to go? Sorry for all the preaching, but climate change is a problem.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And do look up. Continue to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like don't set forest fires and stuff like that because it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody.
It's been the Up Ceiling.
It's been the Up Ceiling.
Hey.
I've been Jon.
I've been Pri. Bye. Bye.